week 26. This week, we are going to emphasize to the ladies that we're working with the importance of a testimony. A testimony is recognizing the places in our lives where we have had encounters with God. Whether we realized it at the time or not, He has shown up for us. He has been faithful, and it is an example of who God is. Again, remember, we are helping the ladies come up with His story, who God is, through an example in our lives. This was really brought out to me yesterday just by accident. I ended up meeting with a gal that I had known from the days when I taught high school. I hadn't seen her for 10 or 15 years, but we ran into each other. She needed somebody to visit with, so we sat down and we began to visit. And she began to share about her life with me. And as I began to listen to her and listen to her and the sadness and the emptiness in her life, because she had been looking and looking and looking for something, which I knew was Jesus, but she continued to come up empty. As she began to share with me, I began to see the importance of talking to her about a relationship with Jesus. So as she told me about where she had been and things that had been going on with her life, I just asked her, do you believe that God has a plan and purpose for your life? Do you believe that He's created you with this amazing sense of compassion and character qualities and dreams and desires because He has a plan for you? And ladies, she just looked at me with this really blank look, and I knew that she didn't know Jesus, that she was searching and searching but had not found the answer. So I began to share with her what God had done in my life, and just briefly a few points of my testimony of where God had shown up for me when I was searching and looking in relationships that kept coming up empty for me. And as I began to share my testimony, a light began to come onto her face, and she said, "That's what I'm looking for. That's exactly what I'm looking for. How did you find that?" She asked that question. So I began to share with her what salvation was and what it meant to have a relationship with God, and how she could have a relationship with a perfect God because of Jesus. And so I said, "Do you know about salvation? Do you know about Jesus?" And again, that blank look. And she said, "No, I don't. Is Jesus the same as God?" So I began to share with her about who Jesus was and what He had done for her, and how God has an amazing plan for her life as she accepts the gift of salvation and follows His plan versus her plan. And just in my own testimony, again, how deciding to follow His plan for my life, how rewarding that had been, and how I continually am fulfilled and not left empty. And she said to me, "How do I do that? How can I have what you have?" I just was blown away and thought, what an honor to get to not only share a piece of my testimony, but after sharing my testimony, have someone say, "How do I get that? How do I know Jesus?" And so that just again was just such a emphasis for me that we need women to understand the importance of their testimony, know their testimony, know where God has shown up, know how to openly talk about that to other people, so that they're asking, who is this God in your life, and how can I have Him in mine? How did you find out God's plan for your life? How did you recognize Him? And how can I have that in my life? So these women writing their testimony, writing His story in their life is key. It solidifies who God is in their life, so they are ready to go and share with others. Remember, ladies, we are creating disciples. We are going and making disciples in these ladies, and so we have to help them understand the importance of their testimony. And it's not for them, but it's for those that God's going to put in their path. So as you go into week 26, I just want to encourage you to help them understand the importance of their testimony. Do that through your testimony, you sharing your timeline where you've seen God in your life, if you haven't already done that, or having somebody come in and share their testimony, not for them, but for the people that they're going to come in contact with. This week, depending on what you did, week 25, week 26, again, reiterating that you are helping the women tell their story. They should come on week 26 and have answered the questions in homework 25. So when they get together with their small groups, they can be asking things like, what was the hardest question to answer? What was the most exciting thing? In what ways have you seen God in your past as you did this homework that you hadn't seen before? Help them to begin talking about the testimony to the people in their small group. Again, it's it's in them. They've now written it down, and now they want to openly talk about it to each other. So it becomes more and more of a reality, more and more of a part of who they are. Do that in their small groups. In their small groups, again, have them pray over each other. God is preparing them for an encounter with someone so they can share their testimony. So help them, begin to pray with them on that. Asking God to begin to prepare for them for what He has planned, and confidently knowing that He wants to use them and He has something planned and a way to use their testimony to help someone else know Him. So they can do that in the small groups as well. Also, in the homework this week, they're going to write out their testimony. This is really key. They need to emphasize to their groups that when they come next week, their testimony needs to be written out. This is going to be difficult for some of them. The testimony isn't going to be handed in, but it needs to be written so when they get to their small groups, they can sit down and they can read it out loud. In the past, I've had women come and say, I have it in my head, I didn't want to write it down. Encourage them. They need to write it down. It needs to be on paper. Two reasons for that. One is when it goes from our head to our paper, then it's solidified what our testimony is and it's complete. They've been accountable. You know that they've done it. The other piece of that is you are limited on time. When you let someone off the top of their head begin to share their testimony, you could have a long period of time and not have time for everybody to share. They are going to read their testimony when they come back week 27. So emphasize to them, this is not optional. They need to write down their testimony this week as their homework. That is their homework. They need to come week 27 ready to read it to their group. All right, super important. All right, I know week 26 is going to be good. Again, just emphasize if you didn't take time week 25 to talk in the large group about personally your testimony or one of your other leadership testimony, how they've seen God's thumbprint in their life before, do that week 26. If you spent time on that week 25, week 26, give them more time in their small group. All right, so this is an exciting time. You're in the middle of the 3 lessons on testimony, and God's going to work and do amazing things. I'm praying for you, and I'm praying for your girls as you write out your testimonies this week.